One day, someone will try to tell your child what they are worth. A friend, a bully, a teacher, social media, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or even a complete stranger online. The question is not whether that moment will come. The question is, will your child already know their value before it does? Because children who know their worth are less likely to tolerate bullying, less likely to give in to peer pressure, less likely to stay in toxic friendship, less likely to accept unhealthy relationship, and less likely to seek validation from the wrong people. In fact, many of the struggle we see in teenagers today, people pleasing, fear of saying no, unhealthy friendship, toxic relationship, and constantly needing approval from others, have their roots in self-worth. In my previous video, I talked about helping children avoid toxic relationships by building their self-worth, not later, not when they are teenagers, but right now. Because by the time we notice a child struggling with self-worth, the foundation will have already been cracking for years. Today, I'm going to show you how self-worth develops throughout childhood and what parents can do at every stage to strengthen it. And stay with me until the end because I will share the biggest mistake many loving parents make without realizing it. And one sentence every child needs to hear. Hello, my name is Clara. I'm a mother of two preteens, and welcome to Gemsworth Parenting, where we help parents raise emotionally healthy, confident, and protected children. Before we talk about building self-worth, let's clear up a common misunderstanding. Many people confuse self-worth with confidence. But confidence says, I can do this, while self-worth says, I still have value even when I can't. Confidence helps children perform, while self-worth helps children to recover. And every child will eventually experience disappointment, failure, rejection, or mistakes. The goal isn't to convince our children they are perfect. Our goal is to help them to know they are valuable even when life doesn't go their way. The foundation of self-worth is built much earlier than most parents realize. In fact, it begins when children are silently asking three questions. Am I safe? Am I loved? Do I matter? When your child cries because they got the wrong cup or because something didn't go their way, it may seem insignificant to you, but in that moment, they are learning something important. Do my feelings matter? Will someone help me when I am overwhelmed? Can I depend on people who love me? This is where self-worth begins. Not with praise, not with trophy, not with achievement, but with emotional safety. At this age, we offer affection freely, validate their emotions, encourage independence, let them make simple choices. And when they are upset, instead of saying, don't cry, try saying, I can see you are upset. Because children who feel emotionally safe are more likely to develop healthy self-worth later. And don't do everything for them. Let them try. Let them struggle. Let them succeed. Every small accomplishment teaches them I am capable. Before we move to the next stage, here is something every parent don't realize. The strongest self-worth isn't built when children succeed. It is built in how we respond when they struggle. And as children get older, something important begins to change. They start looking beyond their family for clues about who they are. And this is where self-worth faces one of its first retests. Children begin comparing themselves to others, who gets invited, who gets attention, who seems popular. I remember one of my children coming home upset because of something another child has said. It wasn't a major incident because we called the school for clarification. In fact, many adults probably would have dismissed it, but it affected that child deeply. And it reminded me of something important. Our children are constantly receiving messages about who they are. Some of these messages are positive, but some are painful. And if we are not intentional, the loudest voice shaping their self-worth may not be ours. This is why helping children identify their strength is so important. They need to know not every child will be top of the class. Not every child will win award, but every child has strengths, kindness, creativity, leadership, empathy, persistence, determination. Let them see this quality in themselves and in others. Because children who know who they are become much harder for the world to define. Let me ask you something. When you were growing up, what made you feel valuable? Your achievement or how someone treated you? Take a moment and think about that. Because children often remember how we made them feel long after they've forgotten what we have said. Everything we have talked about so far has been preparing children for what comes next. Because eventually every child reaches an age where the world starts speaking more loudly than their parents. And that is why the teenage years matter so much. This is where self-worth often becomes protection. Peer pressure increases, social media becomes more influential, friendship becomes more complicated, and body images concern have started appearing. Dating relationship begins and many teenagers start asking themselves a question they rarely say out loud. Am I enough? When that happens, many parents immediately jump into problem-solving mode. But teenagers often need understanding more than they need solution. When your teenager open up, don't immediately fix it. Don't immediately lecture. Don't immediately correct. Instead say, tell me more. Those three words communicate something powerful. That what they're saying matters, what they're feeling matters, that they matter. And sometimes self-worth grows simply because a child feels heard. Now, here is one of the most important things I've learned. When teenagers don't know their worth, they often look for someone else to tell them what they are worth. A friend, social media, popularity, attention, validation. And that's why some young people stay in unhealthy relationships. It is not always because they don't see the warning sign. Sometimes it's because they do not believe they deserve better. And this is why teaching self-worth is also teaching protection. Teach them they deserve respect. Their boundaries matter. Their voice matter. They can say no. Their worth is not determined by popularity. Their worth is not determined by appearance. Their worth is not determined by relationship. Because children who know their worth are far less likely to let anyone define it. And now, we come to the mistake that quietly damages self-worth, even in loving homes. The biggest mistake isn't being straight. The biggest mistake isn't making mistake. The biggest mistake is making children feel that love must be earned. Through grades, behavior, achievement, success, children need to know. My parents may not approve of every choice I make, but they still love me. That belief creates emotional security. And emotional security creates healthy self-worth. If there's one sentence I want every parent to remember, is this. Nothing you do will ever change how much I love you. That doesn't mean we approve of every choice. It doesn't mean there are no consequences. It means our love is not a reward for performance. Because children who know they are loved unconditionally develop a foundation that criticism, rejection, failure cannot easily destroy. One day, someone will criticize your child. Someone will reject them. Someone will underestimate them. Someone may even try to convince them they are not enough. We cannot protect our children from every painful experience, but we can prepare them for it. We can build a voice inside them that says, I know who I am. I know my value. I deserve respect. I matter. That voice often begins with us. Years from now, your child may not remember every rule you made. They may not remember every lecture. They may not remember every consequences, but they will remember how they felt around you. Whether they felt heard, whether they felt valued, whether they felt safe, whether they felt enough. Because self-worth isn't built in one big conversation. It's built in thousands of small moments. A hug, a conversation, a correction given with respect, a parent who listens, a parent who believe in them. Then one day, when the world tells them they are not enough, they will have a choice. They can believe the word or they can believe the voice you've spent years building inside them. Because when a child truly knows their worth, they become harder to manipulate, harder to shame, harder to control, harder to convince that they deserve less than respect. And that may be one of the greatest gifts a parent can give to a child. So before you leave today, remember this. One day the world will tell your child who they are. The question is, will your voice be louder? because your voice will eventually becomes your child's inner voice. Make sure it's one worth carrying for the rest of their life.